The Tech It Up Talk podcast aspires to educate, inform, and inspire educators from teachers to school leaders on tips, tools, and resources to support the integration of technology into classroom instruction.
You ready? Here we go.
You're listening to Tech It Up Talk with Dr. Mac, your host with the most passion for supporting educators from teachers to school leaders with the integration of technology. Today's guest is someone who embodies what it means to lead with innovation and resilience, especially in digital spaces. And so I am joined by the incredible Kristin Pickett, who's an educator and a digital learning leader who works in a virtual instruction space and has experience there, has helped redefine what effective teaching looks like in online and blended learning environments. And so her message, with the right mindset and the right tools, educators can be virtually unstoppable. And so we'll explore what it means to lead learning in a digital classroom and how to keep students and educators engaged, empowered, and connected. So welcome up to the Tech It Up Talk podcast, Kristin. It is such an honor to have you here with me.
Thank you, Dr. Mac. I'm excited to be here with you.
Oh, yes, definitely excited. So we can get started by you just sharing your journey and really how did you come into the world of this virtual digital teaching and learning space?
Well, my name is Kristin Pickett, yes, and I am from South Arkansas. I live in Oklahoma City, but over the last 2 decades, I have taught in Oklahoma, Arkansas, Kansas, and Texas. And that's all because I married a college football coach. And little did I know I was going to move every year to 2 years for the first half of my life or my adulthood. I would have maybe learned a little bit more about technology a lot sooner. So when you're moving from teaching kindergarten in Arkansas to teaching remedial English in Kansas at a college, to teaching bilingual math and science to first graders in Texas, to teaching pre-K kids in Arkansas, you literally are never in the same classroom. You never teach the same curriculum. You never have the same standards. And so you really have to adapt. And I found the only way I was able to do that before becoming a virtual instructor was using technology. Actually, technology and music, because music is a universal language with children. And that was one way that felt like I could always teach anything to anyone was using music, but I had to pull it up on my smart board. I had to go on YouTube, especially when you're going in to teaching bilingual. Like they came the year before to school with zero English, and I don't speak Spanish. So you had to rely on technology. You had to rely on technology to talk to the parents. You had to rely on technology to send notes out to parents. You had to rely on technology for everything. And so beside the very most important thing you need to learn is the word baño. But after that, it's technology. So
I love it. I love it.
After doing that for year after year after year, my middle daughter lived in 4 states before she was 4 years old. I took a few years off, and then I got into teaching at the largest charter school, a virtual charter school in Oklahoma. And there I taught pre-K to 12th grade. I taught all kids virtually. And so that was where I really learned that the only way to teach that many kids, that many different things, is by using technology.
Well, you kind of leaned into this a little bit, but you can probably dial on a little bit more. So what drew you to virtual education specifically and to work at such a specific environment where it's just completely virtual? And like, how did your experience in traditional classroom really shape your approach to teaching online?
Well, like many teachers, it became really difficult to have a husband that was a college football coach and was never home to help and have 3 kids. And so virtual was for me able to continue to teach and be in the classroom, but still be able to take my kids to school or pick someone up if they were sick, like really be able to do it all and not just between 8 and 3 every single day. So that's really what pushed me into it. I tried to get in for a couple years and didn't before I was hired at this school. But I also believe in technology, and everyone does not learn the same. As an adult, I have learned more and more that I do not learn the same as everyone else. My husband can remember everything that he hears auditory wise, and I cannot remember any of that. But if I do it and I play with it, I'll remember it. So virtual education, you're able to really personalize every single child's learning. And so you are able to change things up a little bit. And by doing that, you're able to reach their needs a lot better.
I love it. Yeah, I think that's really a powerful perspective to think it through, because it's really important to understand that, that traditional sit and get, even in an in-person traditional brick and mortar classroom, doesn't always work, right? Because we have students with different needs. You talk about students who are English language learners, or multilingual, and the challenges with reading levels, and so many different avenues that they come to us with. You're that one constant in the classroom that has to support and be able to differentiate the different needs and accommodate for all the students so that they can be successful. So I think that's definitely a very powerful perspective.
Right.
Yeah. So what do you think, I guess, are some of the biggest misconceptions people have about virtual schools and online learning?
Well, there's a few. And one, I will say this, and it could ruffle some feathers, but it is really hard for a student under 8th grade to be in a virtual school and not have a parent at home. It is almost like that parent is that co-teacher as well. And so that's the first thing, is that it's not for everybody. If you work full time, your student needs you. And so because I can't be there for 35 different kids 8 hours a day, every day. And so, the parents really need to be involved. So that's one of the first things. The second thing is that students can't learn. Students can definitely learn. I mean, I had students that graduated a year early, ones that were able to be in professional or semi-professional sports. It really can, if you do it correctly, it can be the greatest blessing ever. I had other students where school was way more, it caused more anxiety than it was worth. And so those students learned better at home, and they were able to get their work done in 4 hours instead of 8. But you have to do it every day, and you have to have a schedule. If you do not have a schedule and you just wake up and you're just, I'll do a little bit of this and do a little bit of that, it does not get done. And those students can fall through the cracks. And that's not fair to the student, because they're a kid. I mean, they still need guidance. So you have to be really, really organized, and you have to just do it and keep doing it, and it ends up working out. But I mean, I had kids that graduated with associate's degree from high school because they were able to do all that and work full time. And one of my very first years, I had a senior who was about to have a baby, and we got all of her work done before that. And who knows if she would have been able to go back after having a baby and do that. But we got her graduated, and she went on and had a baby, and we worked on resumes. And so I was able to help her, not just with what her curriculum was, but what she needed in life. And I think that's what's special. You're able to have really special relationships with each student individually, and you meet them at their own place.
I love that. I love it. I love that you talked about, the hours at school. Like, that's one of my biggest things. I used to really reflect on if my daughter was absent from school and she goes back the next day and the teacher is like, I'm asking for them to send home. Like, what did she miss? What did she make up? Can we do it? Because sometimes I travel a lot. And so she'll come with me when I'm traveling. But then I wonder, it's like, well, no, she can do it when she come back. Like, you mean to tell me she can miss a whole day of school and get it done in like 10 minutes when she comes back? Like,
right.
Like, then what are we doing at school, right?
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
So yeah.
I mean, that's totally it. Like there's a lot of wasted time, and that just doesn't work for every single student. Some people are able to then go and spend more time doing the parts of education they love and maybe find what they want to do in their future. I mean, like STEM, for example, like that is something that we can spend more time on, or we can learn math a different way. But yeah, you don't need 8 hours a day if you are concentrating. But I tell my kids, if there's a phone next to you, it's going to take you 8 hours a day, because you're going to get distracted and you're going to go back to that phone and you're going to have to start over and you're going to have to reread and you're going to have to redo. But if you put it all away and you really concentrate, you'll be able to get it done really fast.
So, what are your thoughts when people say things like virtual students don't engage or you can't build relationships online? So, what are your thoughts around that?
I definitely did think it depends somewhat on the teacher, because even during COVID, because I taught virtually, but I met my students every week. But during COVID, I rented my clubhouse in my neighborhood just so my kids could come up there for, let's see, it was from 10 to 2, 2 days a week. They could come up there so they could still be around other kids, because that is important. You still have to learn socially how to be around others. But I would say that virtual education is whatever you put in it. I mean, you're going to get out what you put in. And so there are some people that maybe can mess up one apple, like they can mess it up for everybody. But I mean, it's really, it is the next generation. And a lot of kids, that's just the way they're going to learn from now on. I pay a lot of money for my daughter to go to the University of Arkansas to take online classes.
Yes, I'm right there with you because my son is now virtual too. So yes, it is very expensive, and you're paying like the in-person rate still
Yes,
for a
like
virtual.
you can do that upstairs.
I like that you said it depends on the person, because I really think is how we lead that learning. And to be honest, I think COVID kind of showed that we're able to develop relationships, even just in general, and get connected, even like through family online. So I think the possibility is still there if the effort and intentionality is put into the work. And so if you're intentional with it, of course, I mean, you can't treat it the same way, I think, like as you would do in a traditional setting. So I think it makes it more challenging for that relationship to be built, but I think it still can be. And I think it's proven that it can be. It's just finding other ways to kind of close those gaps and really connect and have, you get to get really creative with those things.
Yeah.
From your perspective, whether it's in like educational technology, education, what tools or technologies can really make a difference in a virtual classroom?
Well, really good internet. I mean, that's like number
That's
one.
really important.
No dial-up. You gotta have some good internet. And then you need to have a Chromebook. And even starting young, the kids need to start using the keys and typing at a young age. But then they have to have a good curriculum. And there's so many curriculums out there, and they're not for everyone. Some of them are a lot deeper. Some of them are a lot more surface level. But you got to have a good curriculum, and then you have to have a good supplemental program, because you can be awesome at reading and not great at math. And so there's a lot of, you find the good thing about personalized learning is that you find the holes, and where at school they're just gonna keep going, you find out what they don't know, and then you fill the void, you fill that hole. And so you're able to really just make it so much better. So you need to have a good Chromebook, you need to have good internet, you need to have a good curriculum, but then you also need to stop and read a book. I mean, everybody needs to read a book every once in a while. So that has nothing to do with tech, but you need to still get down and read a book. And then also you have to use pen and paper still. Like, yes, we're going to type and this and that, but you go to do a state test, you got to know how to do a math problem on paper to be able to get the answer. So I think those are a lot of the main things that really are super simple and almost everyone can get very easily these days. As a teacher, I still used not a projector, but a little camera, a document camera, where I was able to visually do problems with them, and that was super helpful. Um, and then I also would start a lot of my classes beginning or ending. A lot of times we'd end it with a really great Kahoot because, Kahoots are fun. And so we would always have some kind of game at the beginning or at the end or a dress up day. And so, just making sure your camera's on, like you got to have your camera on and have to have that internet and your Chromebook, and then you're pretty good to go.
One thing I think I really like that you said is the supplemental piece because students do have gaps, and having the right tools that can help with closing those gaps. While especially if you have multiple students that you're working with, you're able to really create a personalized path they can
Mhm.
continue to go down, so that you can still, even if you're doing small group instruction and they're working on the individual path for themselves, it helps with kind of closing that gap because you can do that concurrently across multiple students, right? And
Right.
so if you have those tools that are intentional, I love that you said that you still can incorporate moments of reading. And so whether they have a tangible book or if there was like a digital library that they had access to, you can still incorporate those same moments that we traditionally do
Mhm.
in brick and mortar classrooms. And so I love that as well too. It's challenging sometimes
Mhm.
online when you're trying to really, keep up with the time. And I love that you said early on that, you can do what you would do in 8 hours and 4 hours, because it really is how you're maximizing the use of your time. And a lot of times we're losing instructional minutes in classroom due to behaviors or, doing random things that are happening in class, or, disruptions, or, kids being kids with, being
Mhm.
social or causing, the most random things to take place. And it's so often, or we can also lose time with, just being the sage on the stage as well. And so I think personalizing and creating personalized pathways really help support and help students navigate their own learning to help them be and really build student agency. I think
Mhm.
some of the differences between being like in a traditional classroom with a group of kids who are easy to distract you from being at home, you don't have as many distractions there, but then you kind of lose some of the social cueing pieces. But I think it still can be a healthy balance there.
Yeah, it's supplementals are a lot more fun a lot of times too. Like it's more gamification, and so you can really find the ones that fit the child. The other two things I just thought about is a mouse, because you and I both know you are so much more efficient when you're using a mouse and not trying to use the little trackpad. I would tell my kids, you need to be at a desk with a mouse, and you will be done even faster than 4 hours if you just use the right tools. And then having a printer, there were times where we had like huge snowstorms, or we'd just been locked in the house forever. And the first beautiful day would come out, and I would send them a packet. I'd just say, print this off and go outside, or go read a book and write me a book report. Like, get out of your house. Because every once in a while, you need to get out of your house, or take the Chromebook outside and don't use the mouse that day. But, get out and get some fresh air and, change it up a little bit. And so I would add printer and a mouse that are really important too.
Yeah, I love that. And so, human connection is really important. And I love that you're even saying like, hey, let's go outside. Or maybe you could do a virtual everyone outside of class that day if their
Mhm.
internet, allows them to extend that far, of course. But I love the mouse part. Like, I know it's something simple, but like with Chromebooks, if that's the type of device that they're leveraging versus a Windows device, or we have some Mac users out there too. But
Mhm.
sometimes the Chromebook trackpad can be a little tricky. And so even myself, like, oh my goodness, let me get my mouse. And sometimes you're a little bit
Mhm.
more proactive with that. Yeah, but human connection, is really a foundation of a lot of things that we do. How what are some strategies that you can do as an educator to build strong, meaningful connections with students in a virtual environment?
So, during Halloween or any kind of holiday, we would have like a dress up contest, or, a background contest, or, just something that showed where they were able to show their own personality. And a lot of the kids became friends, and I would send messages and say, hey, mom, do you mind if Joe and Susie, switch emails with each other, or, or whatever. And so, because these kids are, a lot of times they are home alone, and they do really want to talk to other kids like them. And so I do think being able to do things like that, where they're able to meet up or talk on the phone or text or whatever, but then also meeting at the library. Like, I always had certain days where I met my kids at the library. Their parents dropped them off, or we'd meet at the park. And there's lots of co-ops. I live in a place that has amazing co-ops and amazing ways to maybe even learn really hard high school algebra or science. Like, you don't need to rely on me for that. I need to find someone that's going to be better at teaching it than you, which Dr. Khan from Khan Academy was my best friend pretty much, 8th grade and up. So, but yeah, I mean, I think that really just having the parents, like, I was at a school where they had a prom. I mean, they tried, I think they're actually starting sports now. But like, having those extra moments, they would have a zoo day, like go to the zoo, so just having those times to do meetups. And then tons of the schools now, I mean, they're all doing the games, the X Games, or what is it? The esports, X Games. That's from our time, I guess. Esports, so the kids, that's another way. They have esports labs, and so they'll meet up there. So I think, and I also, this could go either way, but I always told my parents they need to be in something. They need to be in a sport. They need to go to church. They need to have some kind of something else they do besides be at home all day, every day, and just talk to their parents. And so whether it's an art club or, a walking club, but they need to be involved in something else besides just sitting in front of a computer, because that's, we all are just really bad about just, limiting that social interaction sometimes, especially, during COVID. I think we all got a little worse about it. So.
Yeah, I love that. I think it's like reimagining what, education looks like. Co-ops. Who would have thought that, there'll be co-ops for kids and meetup that students can do to connect with each other and do some amazing things. And really, I think that helps with, a lot of times we want our kids to go on these field trips, they become costly. And it's like finding, engaging ways to find community for those students who are either homebound or virtual, to still find ways to really connect. I love that you shared the little creative ways, like dressing up on screen or changing your background. You just change the dynamics and find just really creative ways to still build that human connection, which I think is still an important piece that can be done. But physical and in-person contact is just as important in finding ways to still create those opportunities for students. We're always meaningful as well, because we know they want to get around and go see each other or do so many different things. So I love that. I love that. And so, I want to just thank you for joining me today. And, for others who may be interested in maybe pursuing a career or leaving traditional education and going into virtual space, what advice would you give them in transitioning?
Well, it's not easier. It can be harder. I mean, and it can be lonely. But with everything, you get in what you put in. And so I was blessed. I still follow up with a lot of the students now. I would just say, try to find somewhere that aligns with what you're trying to do. And, you have to be really, really organized if you're trying to teach different grades. Today, it's so much more prevalent. The schools, they're able to have more, the elementary teacher or the middle teacher. Like, you're not teaching everything like I was back in the day. But I think, find out what you're good at. And I actually had mainly only taught elementary school before. I found out I loved middle school. I loved teaching middle school. They were still able to have fun and be goofy, but if they were ignoring me, I could text their mom and they would, answer me back. And so I felt like it was like their little last hope before high school. I felt like I was really able to help them, and I loved it. And some of the, have you done 8th grade math recently? Like that is hard. It is hard. So, I mean, I think just them knowing that I was like, wow, we're learning this together at times, or relearning it. And so I think find what you're good at, and then find what makes you passionate. And like anything, you don't want to do something you don't love every day. And so I really loved it. I found that what my passion was not what I first thought it was. It wasn't elementary. Elementary can be a little hard virtually. 8th grade is a little bit easier. So I think just find what you love, what you're passionate about, and do your research on the different schools.
Okay. And so before you go, how can listeners connect with you? And maybe if they wanted to learn more about, your work in virtual education, what would be a great way to connect with you?
I'm on LinkedIn, Kristin L. Pickett. So.
All right. I love that. Well, thank you so much, Kristin, for sharing your journey, your expertise, and really your vision for what virtual learning truly can be. I feel like you reminded us that a digital classroom doesn't have to feel distant, that it can be dynamic, it can be engaging, and of course, transformational when we lead with purpose and intent. And so our listeners who are new to virtual education, or if you're ready to lead it, make sure you connect with Kristin and continue this conversation. And so I want to thank everyone for tuning in to Tech It Up Talk with Dr. Mack, where we explore how to level up learning, leadership, and school culture through innovation. Until next time, I want you guys to keep showing up, keep innovating, and of course, for this episode, stay virtually unstoppable. Thank you.